yeah. All right, welcome everyone to the ResV channel. Coach Reslow here. We got ourselves an absolute superstar in Garrett Bucklin. Garrett, and I think in my description that I put on the socials for your promo, I said you were a local volleyball hero that
Wow.
is now playing in San Diego and doing crazy stuff. I mean, your journey's been pretty awesome. And then you want to talk coffee. So as soon as we start talking coffee, I figured we'd flip this on and get started. How you
Perk
doing, my
right
friend?
up.
Welcome.
Thank you, man. Excited to be here. I don't know about hero, but it has been a good journey. So that's why you brought me on here, right? Just talk about coffee and
Well, no, I
get some
actually figured
laughs.
I figured I'd bring you on to talk about your journey, your career, and how you handle certain things. But then you were like, man, coffee. Let's talk about roasting coffee beans. And now that's all I want to talk about.
I'm in. I'm ready. I'm ready to hear the process. You said you brew your own,
I
you
roast my own coffee beans.
roast your
Yeah.
own. Is that the term?
Yeah. So I roast my own coffee beans. So when COVID hit, and I can't believe we're starting off the interview with talking about me. That is like a faux pas when you're interviewing somebody.
This is the
Hey, let's
goal
talk
right here.
about
This is
me
what I
right now.
wanted. It's been a minute. It's been a minute. So
Let's talk about me. Welcome, Garrett. Let me tell you what I am about.
oh man.
So when COVID hit, we all had nothing to do. I decided that I wanted to roast my own coffee beans, and it was really interesting learning how to do it. And I found somebody online that sold these big metal drums that became spits that you can put on your own grill. And so I use a grill that I bought a long time ago, and I don't cook meat or anything on it anymore. Actually, I really never really did. I just bought it specifically for this coffee roasting process. And uh and I, and I do. I fill my little drum with about 4 pounds of coffee beans, and then I have I set the burners on what I want. I have to keep it around 500-600 degrees, and usually 4 pounds cooks in about 30 minutes. And
Wow.
certainly you can go over 30 minutes if you want a darker roast, or under 30 minutes if you want a lighter roast. I think the other thing that was really interesting was that I decided I wanted to get a lot of green coffee beans at a good spot. And so I found this place called the New York Stock Exchange of Coffee Beans out in New York.
Sounds
And,
official.
and yeah, exactly. New York Coffee Stock Exchange, whatever they call themselves. So I applied, like I got online. I was like, I would like to order, you know, 40 pounds here, 60 pounds there, what have you. And they
Jeez.
called me back and said, listen, like, it's great that you want these things, but we're pretty executive and high class. You need to go through an interview process to utilize our service.
This is great. This is great.
And I said, oh, okay. Let's talk. And they're like, no, you got to set up an interview. I said, okay, well, when's a good time? Figured it out. The interview will be between 30 and 45 minutes long. I said, oh, okay, great. Time came, got on the phone, and like it was wild. Like the dude was asking me so many questions, like what type of coffee do you like? What are you going to try to do with it? Do you have a certain system? Who are you selling to? I'm not selling anything. I'm just trying to do something. I'm
Gotta have
bored,
good coffee.
you know? And in the end, like he gave me the blessing and said I could
Wow.
go. And that's where I get
Exclusive
all my
club,
coffee.
man. That's what you
Yeah.
want.
Yeah. So that's what I do. I make my own coffee beans, roast my own coffee beans, and I bag them. And if someone wants to donate to ResV, I can get you a bag, for
There you
three.
go. You have your own logo, your own
Oh yeah,
baggie
well
you put it up.
the standard ResV
That's
logo, and
pretty
it goes on
cool.
a bag, and you can get, the next step is you go to Amazon, buy some bags, buy about 100 of those guys, and then you can buy a
Yep.
little zapper that glues them
Yeah.
shut, and now you're a coffee guy.
There you go. That's all it takes. That's
All
pretty
right,
cool,
so
man.
yeah, it's not bad. It's something to do, and like my wife digs it. She, we all have different types of coffee, and
I
when we
like it.
went
I
to
would just keep on trying different locations, different styles.
yeah. Well, we went on
Sounds fun.
vacation. We went on vacation to Hawaii, and apparently that's where Kona coffee is the greatest of all time, apparently. And so we
Makes sense, Kona.
bought a couple, green bags, sent them home, and those things were awesome.
Yeah,
Great.
dude, I've heard a lot of good things about Hawaiian coffee. I gotta get
Yeah,
into it.
we did a
I'm just
tour
going
over
down
there.
getting a tin can of Folgers and having at it. So I need to
Oh,
step up my game a little bit.
we gotta save you from that. Get you, talk to me off mic here and let's set you up and get you going with some real coffee. Your game will
Now I'm ready.
improve by 3%. Like your level
I need to
just
get to that
go
next
through the
level.
roof.
Maybe it's that time.
That next little check you get from AVP.
Yeah, exactly.
So for those of you that don't know, Garrett was a player out of Rhode Island at North Kingstown High School, and then he went to play on at Riviera University, Riviera College back then. Was an All-American there, and then went and played overseas in England and got his master's, and then came back and left for San Diego to play beach volleyball professionally. But what you might not know is that he's also a professional YouTuber. So there's all these things. I mean, talk about the complex puzzle that is Garrett Bucklin. Let's get going, man. Start from the beginning. How'd you get into the sport?
So that's a pretty simple story, actually. My family played. My mom and my dad, I believe they met originally playing volleyball, and it goes back to our Thursday night volleyball, which was a pickup volleyball night at Peacedale. I don't know if it's middle school or high school, but they've been playing there for like 30 years or something like that. So I started playing at Peacedale when I was probably maybe 12, 13 years old, something like that. It was quite the controversy because it's always funny to tell this because it was an adult, I'll say league, but it's not a league, adult pickup session. And you had to be 19 to play. So when I was 12 or 13, I was playing. I wasn't phenomenal, but let's say by the time I got 14 or 15, I was still obviously way too young to play. But at that point, I was starting to play in high school. I was, playing for Blast volleyball. I think I started, they only had a 16s team. I think I was like 2 or 3 years too young for that, or not too young because I played with them, but so then the controversy was that I was too young to be playing Thursday nights, but I was better than most of the players. So there's just making, the adults angry, but
this kid out of here.
Eventually, I have so many fond memories of that Thursday night. My mom still goes and plays. She texted me yesterday. Just played a Thursday night. They asked about you. She's been playing for such a long time. So I played throughout that all through high school. And then when I went off to college and I came home and visited, I'd still go and play. And quickly I found that I enjoyed the beach a little bit more. I mean, that transition was mainly because I felt that I was a better overall rounded player rather than a spectacular specific skill type. To where obviously indoors it's much more specialized, and on the beach it's a lot more, but through high school and college there wasn't much opportunity to play on the beach. So obviously I stayed throughout indoors, and then when I finally got the opportunity to play overseas after college, I played for their beach team there. And the one catch 22, not caveat, was that I had to play for their indoor team also. But
well, you were an All-American. I mean, you had to.
Yeah, I mean, I did go through college and All-American, and it was a blast. I mean, the one thing that indoor will forever hold over beach is the camaraderie and the teammates and the family aspect, atmosphere. Because you've got a team of whatever 15 guys rather than a team of 2, and that's always super super fun, especially through college. And
So I'm thinking about this Thursday night league that you grew on, and how you quickly became sort of, better than the adults that were playing in it. Like you just evolved faster because you were playing from a very early age. But one of the things I've always liked about you is the way you describe volleyball and the way you have like a fondness for people that aren't very good. Like you're very kind to those, and the way you talk volleyball. Like I recruited you, for Johnson and Wales, and you very politely said, yeah, I mean, I could think about it, but I probably know where I'm going, that type of thing. And like that was a very unique response from a kid who was a junior in high school. And then later on, when we would discuss different teams, it was always Yeah, those guys aren't very good, but that's okay. So I'm wondering if like your beginnings in the sport, and I'm sure I'm fumbling over what I'm trying to describe, but you have a very easygoing attitude about the game, and you respect everybody who plays no matter what the level is.
I'd like to think so. There's actually, I mean, there's a number of ways I could take this question, but I mean, one of the reasons I love volleyball is because you can play it for as long as you're able to move a little bit. I mean, we had
Hmm.
people that were playing there 60, 70 years old,
Hmm.
you know, and it's obviously not their career. They're obviously not training, you know, they're going to work, they're going home and eating, and then they're so excited to go there and hang out and talk and play a little bit of volleyball. And you see it out here all the time. You know, we go down to South Mission Beach and we've got like 12 volleyball nets that from like all day long, completely empty. 5 o'clock hits and everybody gets out of their job and hoofs it down to the beach. And is it a high level? No, but they're having a blast. They're getting out there, they're diving, getting sandy. Like, I absolutely love that. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. Like that, I think that's a
No, it's
tremendous
great.
thing to get out there and play. And I always tell people that it's such a great sport to get into because you can play it for so long. And you know, my parents, who I thought were who are good volleyball players, were good volleyball players. They didn't pick it up until after college. You know,
Hmm.
and I think that was pretty common. I mean, you picked up the sport late too, as well,
I
right?
did, yeah, yeah. I was a college
So
basketball player.
there's there's absolutely no reason to get on people that haven't started at an early age or don't have the skill set, of others. And one of the biggest things is, so while I'm out here in California, so I'm coaching for Wave Beach Volleyball. And when I originally moved out here in 2020, I would just go down to this local beach court. And typically I was by myself. I'd bring a bag of balls and I would just work on some serves, work on some hits, work on some whatever. And I had one day I went down and there was four guys that were coming down to that same court to play. So I didn't know these guys. I had no idea who they were. I didn't know what their skill set was, but I ended up playing with them and having some fun. And some guys were okay, some guys were good, some guys weren't, you know. But either way, we're just out there having fun. I'm being a good teammate. And one of those guys ended up being a coach at Wave Volleyball. And he's like,
Hmm.
hey, man, like, I love your vibe. Do you ever think about coaching? And I'm like, yes. Like, I just moved out here. I need a job. I've coached for years. Like, let me just talk to somebody. And he was the one that got me into Wave that I've
Hmm.
been coaching for. And, met, Matt Olson, who runs the club and is, a phenomenal friend of mine now. And I've been coaching for them on and off for like 3 years. And it enabled me to move back briefly and then come back to California again. I've been out here about a year now. And without that job, it would have been that much harder, but he
Right.
kept in contact and it all derived from playing some random people on the beach and not being,
Not
a
being,
certain type of way.
not
So
showing some disdain for level, right?
absolutely.
Like again, as I was trying to formulate the question in my mind, I couldn't really get it out what I was trying to say. But this warmth and appreciation for everybody playing, I think you do a real nice job of that. And certainly, I love that you talked about being a good teammate led to something bigger.
Definitely.
One of the things I've been talking with often now with South County, the crew, the crew that I work with from time to time, is this novel idea that if you think about all the games that you play in your career, whether it be volleyball, whether it be basketball, whether it be tiddlywinks, whether it be whatever, no matter what, if you count them all together, you're going to win 50% of the time or lose 50% of the time. So if you count it all together and you realize that you got a 50-50 shot of winning or losing every time you play, what matters most? Being a good teammate, so you have the most opportunity to play,
Yeah.
and then if you're a good teammate and you get more opportunity, maybe your percentage is more 52-48 on the good side versus the other. But the worst thing you can be in volleyball or any sport for that matter is somebody that no one wants to play with.
Definitely.
So,
Absolutely.
I think that's awesome.
There's
So
nothing I
you've, well, go
there's
ahead. Yeah.
nothing I understand less, if you're playing on the beach and there's a guy who's a good player, but nobody wants to play with him because he's just not fun to be with on the court and he gets mad at himself, he gets mad at his team. There's only two of you, there's just no
Yeah.
reason for that. And I always
Yeah.
I always had the vision of, if I go out to a beach tournament and I lose every single game, it may be easy to be angry and upset and go home and, scream into a pillow. But at the end of the day, you are out in the sun, hanging out with friends, listening to some music. Like, life could be worse.
Sure, sure. And it's funny, as I've coached many matches, and again, we'll go into your coaching career a little bit, and as seen a lot of matches, you can tell the teams that are disgruntled. Like, you can
Oh,
tell, like,
absolutely.
there's a you can see people radiating away from other, the guy that's really upset, or the girl that's really upset and is not treating the teammates well. Like, you can see how it just causes massive issues. And,
Yep.
I used to talk about it a lot with the idea that, hey, we're putting our 6 or 7 on the floor in indoor, and certainly even with 2-on-2 beach, it's even magnified more. But, like, you guys and gals are the only fans you have of what's going on. So, like,
Right.
if you hate each other, if you're really battling with each other, I mean, who's going to fight to be good for you?
Right. Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
I'm not gonna try to perform my highest level if the dude next to me, who's supposed to be my teammate, is just killing me over and over again. Like,
Yep,
you sort of just
absolutely.
want to just stop playing. So
It's
that
true.
good teammate thing is gigantic. But let's talk about coaching a little bit. So you did do some stints with us at South County, and you've done some other stuff as well with Wave. Uh, Talk about it. I mean, I do want to recommend you in a lot of ways, because I think there are a lot of good coaches out there, and coaches like yourself who are able to take the unique and the really hard to explain and make it easy. I think that's a gift, and I think you have that. Being able to explain really complex situations in a simplistic manner leads to better things. Which is why, quite frankly, I have Ben Lynn, because he's my coach
It's the best.
Reslow, my coach Reslow interpreter. So talk about your coaching stuff.
So I've been coaching. I don't know how long I've been coaching now. I probably started coaching at South County when I was, I don't know, maybe 17. Does that sound right?
Mhm.
Something like that. So coached for South County for a long time. I always loved the differences from coaching on the beach to coaching indoors and having a team, because then there's so much more to talk about indoors, where it's, building up a teammate, being a good teammate, working towards a common goal. To where on the beach, it's typically not a team, it's a group, and you're kind of just teaching skills and, trying to build up the individual
Hmm.
player type of thing. But it's really cool. I mean, one of my favorite things about coaching out here is that I literally coach all ages. So I have a
Hmm.
group of sand stars that are 5 to 6 years old, and
That's
you're
awesome.
out there tossing them a ball. And it's just, the most important thing is just that they have fun and try to have a love for the sport. But then we also coach, if we're talking about age ranges, we coach an adult group of, 50, 60, whatever age. I don't know, you don't ask. And they're out there having a blast and doing their thing. But those different individual sessions are just so vastly different in your coaching style.
Hmm.
And I think one of the things that have been super fun recently is I've been coaching our high school girls CPT group, which is the college prep training group. We had, let's see, maybe 30, 35 girls in that group. And I think 20 of them got scholarships to go D1. We got
Wow.
Stanford,
Awesome.
Pepperdine. They're the most legit group of girls you've ever seen, jump setting and hammering. And they're so good, intimidating,
Hmm.
honestly, coming into that group and be like, whoa, which we had our U16s team. We had a couple of U16s teams that played in the Manhattan tournament just maybe probably less than a month ago, and it was the finals for the country. So we had like 200 teams in there,
Wow.
and we had a wave versus wave matchup in the quarterfinals. Both teams deserving to win, but wave versus wave, obviously, wave won. But third setter, extra points, and the team that won went on to win U16s, number one team in the country.
Wow.
And they didn't have a close game other than the wave versus wave. I mean, it was just really, really cool to see. And yeah, I mean, it's fun to just see these different aspects, and the game's evolving every day. So trying to introduce these different skills and different game plans, and looking at the game in a different way. I'll throw out a name here of Mike Playcheck. He's the head honcho for those 16s, the CPT group. It's his game plan. I'm just on the sidelines helping out, but talk about a visionary in the sport for coaching. And it's just really, really cool to see. And honestly, I have as much fun coaching those girls as I do coaching the 5 and 6 year olds just having a blast, as I do coaching the adults that are, just hanging out. Most of them are retired, so they're playing at like 10 o'clock on a Friday or 10 o'clock on a Monday. Coaching is really, it's opened up a lot of doors and enabled me to be out here where I want to be, and it's been a blessing. So
cool. Let's talk about your pro career. So you're playing pro beach, and you were recently down in the Dominican, yeah?
Yes. So I started my pro career, pro volleyball. I always little baby quotations, pro volleyball. But I played out in England, competed on the UKBT for a year, and technically played indoor pro there also for the Weymouth team. And so when I moved out to California, I just play in qualifiers. So I go into the AVP, play in qualifiers, try and qualify for the AVP tournament. I have a qualifier coming up, the Manhattan Beach Open, the only true open qualifier I think left in August 18th. So I think signups closed today. So I got in there yesterday, but we're middle of the pack for the tournament. Should be a bunch of fun. Get out there, and I've got. So the tournament that I was in for the Dominican, I was down there about a month or two ago. I compete for the U.S. Virgin Island team. So I just started playing for this team. They sought me out, and they don't have as many guys as they would like to from the islands. I have a tie there because my family has a house there. So I've been going to the U.S. Virgin Islands, going to St. John since I was a little kid, and I've gone there. I was just out there last year. Love going there. Highly recommend if you haven't been. But because they don't have that many people, I mean, it's a very low population, they take players from California. So we have a couple of guys that are a part of the federation out here. So they recruited me to go play for the team. And what an amazing experience. So we played in the Dominican Republic. It was actually what's it called? Not a qualifier. For a bid. So if you made it to the semifinals, you got a bid to the world, I forget, world champions or something in Gstaad, or it was somewhere else, like high level. And we were one win away from making it into the qualifier. But I really was walking in. I had no idea what the level was. We played against Costa Rica, which was a up and coming team, very good players. I was playing with a buddy of mine, Pat Cronshaw from Virginia, about 6'6", 6'7", lefty, very good player. And we just balled. I was playing on the left side. We beat that first day. So it was split up into 2 days. That first day we beat Costa Rica in 2. Then we played against Guatemala, which was another very, very good team. Good players, just smooth, beat them in 2. And then we played against Jamaica, which was a couple of young guys. I don't think they have a ton of athletes on their roster either. Beat them in 2. And went on to the next day, and we had to play, just luck of the draw, we had to play Cuba, which look them up when you get a chance. But they have a 6'8" blocker and a 7-foot defender. So it was pretty funny to see, because so I'm 5'10", for those of you who don't know me. That's what it says on my license, right?
5'10's a little generous, if I recall, but
and it was just comical playing against these guys. And we played a tough game. We went 3 with them. And unfortunately, just due to the heat and the exhaustion, they were serving my partner. He's running up the block. He's working hard. He cramped out at the end there. But that Cuban team had a whole contingent on their side. They had like 25 guys, screaming at us, screaming at them. Awesome atmosphere. And we were serving the 7-footer, and he's resulting to taking a big long look and hitting over the block and, running it down. It was an absolute blast, but we did end up losing that game, and we had to end up forfeiting the next two because my partner cramped
Oh
out
no.
completely.
Oh no.
But what an awesome experience. And that Cuban team ended up winning the tournament. They went on to win it. But if we had beaten them, we would have had an automatic bid to that semifinal game, and then we would have been eligible for this other team. But yeah, so the tournaments are Norseca. I've got a tournament in a couple of weeks in Trinidad and Tobago. So I'm going to be going down there and competing. And they're just awesome experiences. I'm going to be trying to do maybe 2 or 3 of these a summer. I have one lined up for next year in the Cayman Islands. And yeah, we're out there and we're competing. And a lot of the time, if you do well enough, it'll open up doors to play in some other tournaments. I know a couple of the guys on the team have wanted to. So like I said, the tournaments that we play are Norseca, but the federation will give you funding to any tournament that you really want. So there's a team that we're sending, I believe it's in the works, to Thailand for the FIVB.
Oh, wow.
So I don't know what, I think it might be a 1-star, 2-star, maybe even a 3-star event out in Thailand. But again, the federation, we're in there. So they fund us to go wherever realistically we want to go. And as long as I have a partner within the federation, they'll fund the both of us to go and compete.
That's fantastic.
In tournaments. So it's a lot of fun. And this is a pretty recent turn of events. So I just got on the team. They actually, funny enough, they tried to scoop me up a couple of years ago, but it just wasn't the right timing. So then when the federation reached out to me again 4 months ago or whatever it was, I was like, yep, I'm out here.
Let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And since most of the tournaments are in the Caribbean, even if I stay out here, my tentative plan is to stay out in California for the next handful of years, and then probably move back to the East Coast when we move into the next chapter.
Your lives, yeah.
And that wouldn't be a hindrance at all to be on that team, because now that I'm on the East Coast, it's actually cheaper for me to go down to these tournaments.
Gotcha.
So it works out really well. Yeah.
Really, really cool. Happy to hear.
Yeah.
So I do want to talk about your prep. Like, I feel bad for your partner who had cramped out, but like,
it's tough, man.
It happens. Like
it happens. It was brutally hot and very windy. So we were just working hard,
Yeah. So like, how do you prep for something like that? So what's in your bag when you go to these tournaments, and how do you warm up for the first match, and how do you stay above or ahead of that stuff? Because those do sound like brutal conditions.
So, I mean, the biggest thing for me is just staying consistent. So I have the opportunity out here to pretty much play every day if I want to. So, I play 4 to 5, I would say, times a week. It's been a funny transition for me to get into stretching. So I was never a big advocate for stretching, and it was always.
I remember I used to watch you warm up at Riviera.
I never liked it. I don't know when the switch flipped, but I feel like I'm stretching all the time now. I'm coaching. I'm just touching the toes. I'm just doing, keeping those hip flexors nice. And I've got a little routine now that I do, of course, every time, prepping for a match. And yeah, I would say the biggest things that I do: stay consistent playing, stay in shape. I try to eat relatively healthy. Big salad guy now. Big salad guy.
Ooh, big salad guy. Wow.
But then, yeah, stretching consistently as well. So, just for me, it's mostly my knees that I worry about. So just the leg stretches, touching the toes, pulling the knee to chest, all those. I have a little routine that I do the day of that tournament, just getting the body right. And then the day of, big advocate of, if I'm playing on a Saturday, that Friday, I do as little as possible. I try to stay out of the sun. You try and drink a lot of water, and you roll out. Those are the big 3 things, right? And that bodes pretty well, because then you can get up early. You can feel pretty good about yourself. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much my prep for the most part.
So you're playing 4 to 5 days a week, and you're stretching and doing all this stuff, trying to eat healthy, lots of hydration, get all that. Do you do any strength training or lifting, or is that sort of something that would be later on when you have a break? Or
I do. I'm kind of the wrong person to talk about strength training. I've always had a love-hate relationship with working out, because what I found in college, and I don't know if I should be saying this or not, but what I found in college is the more I worked out, the more I got injured. And it could have been correlated to me not stretching in college, as you talked about. But so for what I do for workouts now is I really enjoy just body workouts, body weight. So I do, P90X and HIIT workouts. They're like 30 minutes a day, just sweat a lot and just work hard for those 30, a lot of cardio type of things. And then I do your basic stuff. So every morning I get up and I do my push-ups and my sit-ups, and I try to stretch the shoulders. Those are the big ones in the morning. So I just try to get the arm back and the arm up. And yeah, I mean, again, it's just kind of the consistency. I feel like if you take the time to work out for 30 minutes, I'm not going to say every day, let's say 3 times a week. Biggest thing for me is just not giving yourself, letting up for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks. When you go on vacation, it's tough, right? You go away or you get busy or whatever, and you don't work out, and all of a sudden 1 week turns into 2 weeks, turns into 3 weeks. When you go back to the gym, you're going to be really, really sore, and you're going to start having some pain in your knees and your shoulders or whatever it is. So for me, big advocate of just consistency. And when I do go to the gym, it's a lot of legs. I love my squats. I love my lunges, weighted lunges. But for the most part, it's a lot of body weight stuff. So a lot of jumping.
Cool. How do you select a partner when it comes down to these big tournaments? I mean, granted, you did mention that in the Dominican stuff, and I'm calling it that mainly because I don't know what else to call it, but Norseca, you have to have somebody from the federation. But just in general, how do you select a partner, and how do you figure out who's going to allow you to have the best experience as well as compete at the highest level and get some W's?
It's a good question. There's a couple different things that go into effect when I'm thinking about a partner. And so for the Norseca ones, when I'm competing, there's only like 10 guys on the team. So, I mean, it's kind of easy to choose who's the best option for me, best blocker. We've got some really good defenders on the team that I would go and I would compete with if I needed to. But in that regard, it's relatively simple. But if I'm competing for CBVAs or AVPs, there's a couple different things that you can do. So when you go to these tournaments and you play, you try to network a little bit, right? You're always trying to talk to different people, who you're playing against, who you're watching. You see something, if you like their vibe and their energy, rather than you could also look, of course, at their skill set. Oh, that's a guy's a good blocker. That's a really good way to do it. One of the guys that I've been playing with the most consistently recently is a guy that I coach with. And the reason for that is he's a good player, good vibe, friend of mine. And I can just train with him all the time. I mean, I see him 4 days a week because I'm coaching. So once we do our 5 hours of coaching, we keep one net up. We, do some serve and pass for an hour. If we can get 4 guys out, we play a couple of games there and train with right there. But I see him all the time. So I train with him all the time, and it works out really well in that regard. But I mean, out here, there's a million players. There's so many players. So as long as you're going to tournaments and getting your name out there a little bit, you're getting phone numbers and you're getting contacts, and, it's just putting yourself out there. Honestly, I could be a lot better about getting out there and just talking to people. When I'm at tournaments, I kind of like to be in my own zone and whatnot. And these other guys are getting out and chatting and whatnot. But I mean, the volleyball community, people are nice. People want to talk. People want to, if you're going to go up to them and say, hey man, I like your game. What are they going to, they're not going to be like, get out of here. Like, they're going to be like, oh yeah, dude. Oh yeah, I saw your game. Whatever. Yeah. And it builds from there. So, and if I wanted to go up to LA and play, I mean, I think there's a lot of players here in San Diego. There's an infinitely more players in LA. So they're just around, and you just got to get out there and ask if there's somebody you're watching, and you have the opportunity to go up and talk to them, or you get their phone number, Facebook, whatever. Worst they can say is no. And if you say yes, you can have a lot of fun and really compete at a high level.
How have you handled playing in a match where like your partner has broken down and it's not a good vibe? Like, how do you deal with that situation? And then the second part of that question is also, just in general, talk about how you communicate with your partners, whether good or bad. But let's talk about that scenario where things have gone wrong.
So, I mean, perfect example would be the Norseca. Vibes never went bad. Always positive. I'm always trying to be positive. I've been in that situation where I'm getting picked on and I'm having a hard time. And all I'm trying to do is say, hey, partner, stay with me. Stay with me. We're in this together, you know. So that's all I try to do for my partner if they're having a tough time. But I mean, positives, always good, being positive in the gameplay standpoint. I mean, for example, when we were playing that guy playing where my partner was having a tough time, I would run up and block. I would try and work that much harder on defense to try and put that ball on his head so he didn't have to move. You know, and it's just 1 point at a time. You try and, you know, there's the tricks of the trade of trying to give your partner some extra energy, a fake timeout, go and fix a line that didn't need fixing, go, you know, wipe the sweat from your sunglasses that you're not wearing, you know, type of thing. So, yeah, there's always the little things that you can do. But again, it kind of goes back to, I play volleyball, as most people do, for the love of the game. You know, there's just no reason to get on my partner. They're trying their best. Like, you know, if they're having a tough time, is there anything that I can do better? You know, is it just not your day? Sometimes it's just not your day, you know, and that's okay. You know, so there's just nothing that's good that's going to come out of you getting on your partner, you yelling at them. You know, I feel like there's a little bit of that perhaps in indoors where one person's having a tough time that brings down another guy, brings that, you know, but if you, it's just the two of you on the beach, I mean, you can kind of just stop it in your tracks. As soon as they're getting on themselves, a couple of good words. And you know what, with that fact, knowing who you're playing with too, because sometimes if they're having a tough time, they don't want you to say anything. Like you just, you know, you worry about yourself, they're going to deal with themselves and they'll get out of it. You know, so it's
a great
really,
point.
Yeah, I mean, it's knowing your partner and having that further bond if possible. It's not always possible. Maybe it's a new partnership or whatever, but they, you know, if they hit 3 balls in a row out of bounds, not everybody needs you to go up and go, hey, let's put this ball in. Like, you know, they know, they understand that they're trying, you know, they're trying to put, you know, and that could send them off. Oh yeah, you know, kidding, you know. So you go over, you give them a high five. You get back, it's like you give them a better set. You know, it's like
it's like an indoor where, you know, you hit a couple balls out of bounds and you start like, hey, set me better. Yeah, no shit, right. Sherlock. That's what I'm trying to do.
Exactly. You know, so
you've played setter, you've had people barking at you.
Oh, absolutely. And when you're the setter, you have a green flag to bark at anybody you want. So yeah, I made you hit that ball out of bounds. You're right. So it goes a long way, you know, and you hope with the partner that you chose that you react in similar manners, or at least understand each other. The partner that I play with right now, he and I have very different vibes. He's a high energy, he's a couple of years younger than me, high energy guy, screaming, yelling, really excited about doing anything. You've seen me play most of the time. I don't want any energy. I'm going to be as little energy as possible, output of, you know, expression. It just, it saves me in terms of, you know, exhaustion. And I don't need it. And it, you know, one of my favorite things I used to say in college is just act like you've been there before. You know, if at a weird time I find myself at the net and I get a block on somebody, probably half the people there are going to be like, oh, like the little guy just got a block. I'm not going to celebrate it. I'm going to throw it down. I'm going to walk back to my partner like, yeah, you know, I've been there before. And that's right. Is something for the opponent that's like, the guy didn't even care. Like he just blocked me on my head and he didn't even, you know, but I'm going to be nice and calm. My partner's going to scream and yell. So I'm going to try and cater to him when he gets a big point. Hey, good job, buddy. And when I get a good point, he's probably not going to say anything to me because that's what I want.
I love your demeanor. Your demeanor as a player has always been fascinating to me because it reminds me of Kevin. Like Kevin Harrington had the same sort of demeanor and how he handled playing volleyball. Kevin was another, you know, I'm hoping to have him on the program later on, before the girls' season. He's officially stepped away from North Kingstown High School. So that's sort of a big deal. He's been there for a while and it's been sort of a staple there.
Absolute
Um,
legend.
but yeah, exactly. Well, I put you in that category as well. Like you guys both have the same sort of like really cool, calm, and collective way of playing volleyball. In fact, back to me, like the reason I got into I thought volleyball was cool is I thought Kevin Harrington was the coolest volleyball player I'd ever seen. Like back when he
Yeah.
was at the height of his powers, he had golden blonde hair, huge shoulders, and could do cool things with a volleyball that I
Yeah.
had never seen anyone do before.
The dream.
Yeah, he was the dream. So it's one of those things where it's really, I guess the question I want to give you is how did you decide that was the demeanor you wanted to work with and make that a staple of the way you play volleyball?
Well, I think it's kind of just an expression of who I am too. I mean, I've
Mm,
always been a very mellow guy. I like celebrating moments when they come, and if I win a match and a big match and it means a lot to me, I'm going to show that expression. But I just prefer throughout a match to be here rather than be here and here, because the
mm,
highs are high and the lows are low. And volleyball is a momentum game. So if I'm at a high point, that's great, but then a bad thing happens, another bad thing happens, all of a sudden I'm in a rut, so I'd much rather just be steady throughout. And it's from watching these guys. I mean, the best example possible for the beach would be Todd Rogers and Phil Dahlhauser. You remember watching
yeah.
these guys?
Mm,
They'd play a game and I mean, borderline looked like they hated each other,
mm,
because they just had zero emotion at any time, but they would never be rattled. They would always be in the point. They were, precision. They were just out there doing exactly what they had in their game plan. And once they made it, they were 2008 Olympic gold medalists.
yeah, they were really
They
legit.
they celebrated, till kingdom come, as they
Mhm,
should have, right?
right.
But throughout the tournament, they were, precision and calculated. I think that's a really good word for it. And I always liked that vibe. I always thought that was the way to go.
Right, but there's so many few players that I've seen that handle the game the way you and Kevin did. Most of it is like the player you just described. Lots of energy, lots of high
Mhm.
octane, like this good thing happened, huge block, big energy, lots of yelling. It's just, I think that's why it's worth sort of prodding you a little bit more on it because it doesn't happen as much as you think.
To be honest, I've never really thought about it. I've always this
It's just the
is
way I play
this is
volleyball.
always how I've done it.
Yeah.
I might have been a little bit more high energy when I was a bit younger. Throughout my college career, I would, from freshman year of college, volleyball and personally, till senior year of college, there was just exponential growth in just,
Mm,
I would say, in every aspect. When I came into myself, came into my volleyball, all these things. And I mean, that's just where that's my comfort zone. My comfort zone, like you, is in the morning drinking my coffee, getting ready to start the day. And when I'm in, playing volleyball, high moment, high pressure, where am I going to be the most comfortable? Chilling, low energy, taking care of what I want to take care of and thinking about the right things. I mean, to me, if I'm yelling and screaming and high energy, I'm thinking about the wrong stuff. But I would much rather be, okay, back and serve receive. What am I doing right now? What am I thinking right now? What are they doing right now? And let me just say that that's not how everybody works. You got to find what works for you. Okay. And that's what I found works for me. And it's certainly not, for everybody. And if you perform the best when you're high energy, great. I've seen guys that perform the best when they're angry. So every time they're stepping on the court, they're yelling and kicking and screaming and angry, and they're a heck of a player,
That's
So it's
that's
just
that's
finding
what
what works for you.
That's what appeared to be Karch's deal. I mean, if you think
Yeah,
about Karch on the
yeah.
beach with the pink hat, he
Pump
always
them
looked
up.
mad at the world.
Yeah. And hey, it clearly worked for
It
him,
clearly was the guy. Yeah,
But
yeah.
I've don't get me wrong, I've had those moments of anger. I've played on the beach where I storm off the court and wanted to punt the volleyball. But those were low moments and did not work. I lost. I would get angry and I would lose. So, it's been a long time since I acted in that manner, but I found a way that I enjoyed playing the game, and I've stuck with that for years. That's how I've been since college.
And then also inject some humor as well. I think, being able to sort of laugh at the situation or make a nice
Yeah,
remark that makes everyone sort of take, basically the steam valve opens up and you get to sort of, all right, I'm okay. And
absolutely.
I do want to talk to you a little bit about how you deal with frustration, fear, and doubt. Players that are jumping into the game. Uh, a lot of the people that watch this stuff are guys that are playing at a pretty high level for South County and also just Rhode Island in general. And you mentioned about putting yourself out there. Like, has there ever been a moment for you where there's been some fear and doubt, and how did you get over that stuff?
Of course. I mean, if we're talking about, trying to find one player to another, the best way that you can kind of open up that conversation is to perform. Because once you perform and you get these guys, it makes that conversation much easier. But I mean, I've had plenty of times where I'm putting myself out there and trying to ask these really good players. And one of my favorite partners that I've ever played with was Andy Wimmer. Right. So for those of you guys who don't know Andy Wimmer, he was a Florida guy for a long time and competed on the what was it, Volley America back then. And he won like 3 Volley America Nationals in a row or something like that. Very, very good player. And moved to Maine. So then he competed in Newport, which was my backyard. And I was lucky enough to scoop him for a couple of tournaments. Never lost a tournament with him. So, putting myself out there, worst he can say is no. There we go. We get in there. But let's talk about frustrations. Let's talk about, nervousness and all that. It's never going to go away. Okay. I think a really important point, I don't know where this quote comes from, but the response in your body of nervousness and excitement is almost identical. It's almost the exact same, like arrhythmia in your pulse or whatever. It's the same exact reaction. So if you are ever, nervous about a point, high pressure point, you just got to try and remember, you know what? It could be nerves. It could just as well be excitement. Okay. And it brings me right back to the point of, okay, I'm excited to be here. Let's think about the right things. Okay. So if you're in the moment, you had Kolick on here, right?
I did.
Big thing I took from Kolick, the ABCs. I love coaching the ABCs. It's the 3 things that you want to think about every time you're about to perform a skill. So if I'm sitting in serve receive, I'm thinking about the 3 things. Okay, let's get low. Let's get on my toes. Let's hold that platform. They're different for everybody. You should be able to recite like the back of your hand your ABCs for every single little thing that you do. So if you're in a game, it's thinking about the right things, not thinking about the moment. Okay. You're not looking to win this point. You're looking to pass this ball well, right? There's a big difference. That serve's coming. And if you're thinking, oh, I need this point, you're not thinking about your platform. You're not thinking about your footwork. And that's where a lot of people get into trouble. So it's thinking about the right things. And one of my favorite things about after tournaments come to an end, win, lose, whatever, I've got a great big notes page on my phone, and I'm going to write down every little thing that I want to work on. And I'm going to go out and I'm going to work on those things. I'm going to go out and I'm going to practice. I'm going to drill those specific things so that the next time I come into a tournament, oh, here I am. Think about my ABCs. These are the aspects that I worked on this week. Let's go to the bread and butter. It puts you puts the moment in perspective. And then that way you can kind of move forward a little bit more precisely.
Love it. Love it. Let's talk about your, we're rounding third heading home, certainly in the interview. And before I sort of ask these questions of almost everybody I have on, but before I, certainly thank you so much for your time. It's been so cool.
Happy to do it.
But, what's your greatest win as a player? Like what's the biggest W?
Well, let's see. Greatest win as a player would probably be the GNAC championship for indoors. That was super fun. That was so little history of Riviere, right? So we had we used to win a lot, right? We won a lot. My freshman year we got there, I think we were off like a 3-peat or something like that. And we lost my freshman year. We lost my sophomore year. We lost my junior year. The GNAC had gotten better. It wasn't that we necessarily had gotten worse. The GNAC actually had gotten significantly better. So then by the time I was in my senior year, I was setting, clear, captain on that team and taking charge, whatever. And we won that. Probably one of my favorite wins. My other favorite win would be out in England. So when I was playing out in England, they had the England, I'm trying to think of what the name was actually called, the National Collegiate tournament, whatever it was. It was like the big tournament at the end of the year, and they brought out all their athletes from all over the place. And England's a big advocate of bringing in USA players, bringing in Scottish players. They would, it was the same master's program that I would do, and they would play on these pro teams that were connected to a school where you got your master's, and then they would translate to the beach. So even though it was college, you were getting people all over the place that were playing for their masters. They were well into their 20s, whatever. And I competed for Bournemouth that year. There was a couple of players that were very, very good on my team, and I ended up being the 2 team, where I thought I should have been the 1 team, but I was on the 2 team. And we ended up, me and my partner, who was about the same height as me, which was a little bit comical. We went into this 2 or 3 day tournament, competed. The 1 team fell off one place or another. I don't know where they lost. We ended up making it to the finals of whatever the heck the tournament was called, national whatever. And we ended up playing against a Scottish player, electric arm, super, super jumpy. I'm trying to think of his name. No idea. And a very good blocker. We were playing it. It was an absolute battle, super fun game. And we actually won off of me blocking the guy, 1 arm, Kong block into the angle, blocking line, all the way into the angle. There's a couple of photos of me like coming down from the block, like excited. That was pretty sweet. And won a trophy for the school, trophy for me, a little bit of a,
have some of that
type of thing. So that was pretty sweet to say the least. And then if I had to mention any others, those Newport tournaments, I grew up playing those Newport tournaments. I've won I don't know, 4 or 5 of them at this point. And the first one was amazing. The 5th one was amazing. Most recently, I won with Matt Sear, who had never won a Newport yet. So I got him his first victory. Love getting first victories for people. Somebody you might think about talking to, Frank Field.
Yeah, Frank.
He's doing phenomenal out here as well, playing on the tour. And I got him his first ever beach win. That was actually up in Maine. But yeah, so there's definitely some highlights that I can think back to and admire the feeling, remember the feeling.
Well, let's reverse the question. What's the toughest defeat?
Toughest defeat. Oh man. I mean, GNAX was always tough. That freshman year loss was tough. And
you played a different position every year you played at RIV, right?
You
were a lib and out, a setter.
So my freshman year, I played right side and kind of back right, little DS, but also some right side because we had kind of a revolving door there of a couple of guys. My sophomore year, I would say my sophomore year we lost to Wentworth, I believe. I played outside that year, and I was in a rotation with 2 other guys, and one was a senior, one was a junior. I was a sophomore. And that loss hurt a lot because, like I said, it was a revolving door every game. So you never really knew when you were going to play. And that finals, I did not play. And I remember watching the senior. I won't say any names. There's no way anyone would know him. The senior struggled in that match. And I remember it's like game 5 or something. I'm like, put me in there, coach, please. Like, I'll just hit it off his hands. Like, let me just get in there. It was a close game. I didn't get the chance to get in there. We lost that GNAC. That one hurt real bad. And then my junior year, I libbed. That was super fun. Defensive player of the year that year. And then of
Mhm.
course my senior year I set. That was also super fun, but I was also kind of over indoor at that point. So the team kept me going. That was awesome. And playing
I
at a
remember
high level was super fun.
I remember seeing you at a preseason tournament, and we were all in New York for this tournament, and you were sitting there, and I walked by. I said, "Hey, Garrett, what's going on?" He said, "Hey, doing all right." And I said, how you guys looking?" And your response, I'll never forget. Like the normal group of goons that at any day or moment we could put it together and do it.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And I was like, all right, good to know. And then all of a sudden you guys go on this run and win the whole thing. I was like, God damn
We did
it.
figure it out. I mean, that senior year squad, I mean, we had two very good middles in very different ways. We
Mm.
had like a 6'2" middle who loved slides and just getting up quick and hitting those middle balls. And then we had a 6'7" middle who just loved hitting 31s. So it was like depending on the middle, it was front, back. We had our best passer was our 0-2, and our 0-1 was just a phenomenal hitter, flew through the air, figured it out like second half. And then right side, of course, Grant Andler, my buddy, who was also an All-American that year, who would just
I want to
float
figure
through
out how to
the air
stop Grant.
somehow and would just side out at an unbelievable clip. He also hit 1,000 kills his final game. And
Grant
that
must have
loss
hit
was also tough, but
Grant must have hit 700 is that year. I mean, he was
well,
lights
that
out.
was that year from my senior year. Almost everybody hit like a crazy number. I think Grant has 700. I think both the middles had to have been around 700. I might even say
Yeah.
higher. And then our outside, I mean, he hit very well. We had a lot of options. If you have a lot of options on offense and some pretty good passers, you're going to hit a high percentage. So that worked out well. And the 0-2, my buddy Cam, who's just an amazing player. I think he's playing for the VLA now. Just one of the best passers around, just pure. And he would get 4 sets a match, and he'd side out 3 of them. And he'd pass a dime every single time. Just is so funny.
Yeah, I think
Good
he's playing for
times.
Northeast. So,
Oh, is he? Yeah, Northeast
yeah,
now. Yeah, just
yeah.
a phenomenal
So
player.
he's a good dude too. Real nice dude.
Oh, love him, love him.
What's the weirdest moment that you've had as a player? Weirdest moment.
Weirdest moment. Well, I would have to say it would have to be some of the injuries I've
Hmm.
had, because my senior year, that senior year of college was a bizarre one from start to finish. So I landed on my own middle and broke my ankle, sprained my ankle. I think there was like a couple of fractures in there. I don't know. I was out for a while. That was actually a fun match, believe it or not, because I believe we were playing LaSalle, and it was game 2. So we won the first game. No, won the second game. Third set, I hurt my ankle, and they took me out, and I didn't want to get iced or leave or wrapped, or I forget what I didn't want. But we went on to lose that third one, lose the fourth game, and I was like, this is so. I was like, just put me back in. Like, this is ridiculous. So I think they wrapped it real good, put my shoe back on, and I went out for the 5th set and just jumped off 1 foot every time. And we killed them in the fifth set. Went on to win the game, but then I was out for a couple of months, and that was super frustrating. And to your point of most bizarre, one of my least favorite volleyball moments was the practice that I came back from being out. We were working on blocking, and we were working on blocking angle. So we had somebody on a box, the blockers block angle. My friend on the box turned this ball as hard as he could down the line and dislocated my finger. So the first day I got back. So then the rest of the season, I'm playing with this honking thing on my finger, and I'm trying to set. And sometimes, like, I would set, and the thing would go flying off. I'd like have to chase down, put it back on that was
But
not
then,
fun.
but then, true to form, you always had your wit about it. because I remember seeing you later on in the season. Garrett, how's it going? Hey, hurt my finger blocking. And I was like, oh, that's too bad. He's like, yeah, right. Like I'm 5'9". No one hit. I don't block anybody. How do you actually hit the block? I was
Exactly.
like, yeah, good point.
So that I would jump with two hands, press with two hands, and then just pull down the right. hope they hope they don't hit it. Yeah, that was probably my most bizarre moment. Other than that, it would be on the beach. If my partners do cramp out, it makes for some pretty funny moments of me serving and running up to block, and running around my partner all over the place trying to like dig it to them, and those are pretty funny. And just to throw in one other funny moment, I remember playing in Newport, playing through a borderline hurricane where the ball was
That's
so
tough.
heavy from the rain that I couldn't physically hit the ball over the net like this serving. So we were all serving underhand. It's like a medicine ball, and you're playing defense. You're trying to see the ball through the rain, and they're hitting at you. That was pretty funny. Those were some pretty bizarre moments.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. I believe it.
Adversity.
Adversity. That's what it's all about. How you handle it.
Overcoming it. That's it.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. What is one thing that every player should know that they probably don't?
Ooh, let's I'll throw out why they play the game. Why they play the game. Figure out why you're playing, because I feel like a lot of the times I had like a existential crisis probably back in high school where I didn't know why I played. I played because my parents played, and I was like, I don't even know if I enjoy this. I was probably like, trying to make a starting spot. Maybe I was a sophomore trying to play up, or that transition period where you're just not the best guy, and you're thinking like, why am I playing this? Am I playing it for the love of the game? If you're at a high level, are you playing it for the money? Are you playing it because your parents want you to play it? It's very easy for me to answer that now, just playing for the love of the game. That's just such an easy answer. That's kind of why I transitioned out of indoor. Okay. Because, if you look at it, if you take a step back and you look at the different games, would I rather be standing in a hot, sweaty gym with a bunch of whistles, or would I rather be standing on the beach, listening to music, hanging out with a buddy of mine? Pretty simple for me.
I take the sweaty gym.
And a lot of people do. And you know what? It's that aspect of the family atmosphere and the team camaraderie, like I was talking about earlier on indoor, that is just absolutely phenomenal. Easily my favorite part of indoor, and easily my favorite part of college. But yeah, if you are asking yourself, why am I even here? You're going to have a hard time enjoying. You're going to have a hard time performing at the clip that you can, because if you know that you're playing to love the game, then you can get out there and work hard, and it's taken me many, many years to try and figure out why I do play and what's the reason and what I want to do with the sport. And I think ours is unique to where, you're not going to get massively wealthy off of playing volleyball in most situations. But you know what? It's opened up a million different doors for me, traveling, meeting unique, new, just amazing people all over the world. Volleyball has been, such a blessing in so many regards for me, that, I'm just forever endlessly thankful. And that's why I love it. I love playing it, and I love what it brings. And it's kind of nice that it doesn't just bring money, because then I think you can easily lose yourself to, well, I'm playing in this tournament, but if I don't make a fifth, I'm not coming out green, to where it paid for my next meal or something like that, that whole aspect is completely removed for most of us. And if you can just play as to enjoy it, I think that's really nice.
I want to piggyback on what you said there. I think almost every athlete goes through that existential crisis that you talked about. I know I went through it with me when I was playing collegiate basketball. I was a junior, and like I was a collegiate basketball player, and I'm playing, and I had another bad outing, and I'm standing in the front of my house, and my parents were there to see me, and I was just like, why am I doing this? Like, I don't even like the game. Like, I happened to be pretty good at it because I was a collegiate player and I was recruited and had a starting role and all that stuff, but like I hated playing the game.
Yeah.
And
I feel like that happens a lot.
and then I started realizing like the reason I took this direction because my dad really wanted me to be a good basketball player. And not that my
Amazing.
dad was mean or I love my dad, but like he thought, wow, look at this opportunity.
Right.
And I wanted to make him happy. And I think if I had it to do over again, I probably would have played volleyball because I loved that sport more. I was more interested in what was going on in that sport. I
Yeah.
just happened to play basketball since I was, 5 and got pretty good at it.
Right.
And at the end of the day, I remember what day, I forget what year it was in college, but we were playing at Juniata for their basketball. We kicked the hell out of them because their basketball team stunk. And then as we're waiting for the bus, because the bus is always late to pick you up for anything, the men's volleyball team for Juniata was setting up, and I just sat there watching them going, that's what I really want to do. What
They
am I
were
doing
good
right
too.
now? Yeah.
Juniata.
Back
That's a good
then, yeah.
team.
They still have, yeah. They're
Yeah.
always premier.
Yeah.
So when that crisis comes and you have to actually look inside and see why you're doing something, like it's gigantic. And
Yeah.
and if you get and if you're honest with yourself and you get the answer, you can actually bloom from there and really have a great experience with what you're trying to accomplish. And for me, it was changing sports completely.
Right.
But it sounded like for you, you had yours a lot earlier and then realized why you love doing it. And look at the journey in the world it's created for you.
Well, that's it. I mean, I think very, very similar in my situation because, I grew up playing volleyball indoor, obviously, and I was playing a lot, and I was playing because I was good.
Mhm.
I was good, and that was the whole reason. I went through high school, and that was I was the volleyball guy. Our team became pretty good, so then people would, I'd get more friends or whatever, and I started to kind of lose the love of the game. Going through the end of high school into college, it was a struggle in college. But by the time I was like a junior, maybe even earlier in college, I was like, you know what? I love the sport of volleyball, but maybe I'm in the wrong setting. I'm
Mhm.
in, I love being outside on the beach playing volleyball. So, I mean, to me, they're two different sports. You gave up
They are,
basketball,
yeah,
I gave up indoor. I
yeah.
don't think I even brought my shoes out to California. I still get offers. I won't even coach indoors anymore. I've gotten offers a bunch of times to coach inside for Wave, or there's high school, college programs that are looking for coaches and assistant coaches and this and that. I don't even know if I could put together a rotation anymore. I haven't played or coached indoor in so long, and I don't miss it at all. And I step out on the beach and it's like a deep breath. I mean, there's just nothing more beautiful.
Mm,
Volleyball net on the sand, the ocean in the background, sunshine in the sky. That's what you got to find.
I hear you. What is one thing that every coach should know that he or she probably doesn't know?
Ooh, well, I think it's almost a similar answer to what I said about being a good partner, being a good teammate.
Mm,
And it's understanding the type of player you have on your roster and what will get the best out of them. I've seen it many times where, and I think that's very, very difficult to do this, but I've seen many times where coaches will be very, very good at coaching in a certain manner. And that's going to be just where they stay the entire time. And it's going to boost some players and it's going to crush others.
mm,
And I feel that if can get to know certain players or get to know your team in a way where you know how to get the best out of them, that's what's going to work the best. Because, yelling and screaming at some players is going to get the best out of them.
true.
And for others, absolutely
Break
not. They're
them.
going to shut down and they're going to quit, or they're not going to care, or they're, things like that. So I think it's just really important to kind of understand the individual, because then you can be a little bit more cohesive and work towards your common goal.
Mm, agree. Agree wholeheartedly. Last
Mm-hmm.
question, man. What's the future hold for you? What are you doing next?
The future. What a question. Um, Honestly, I'm enjoying the sport, and I'm going to be playing it for the next couple of years. My plan, like I talked about a little bit, is probably staying out here for the next like 3 years. And when I hit around 30, I'm planning on kind of moving back and slowing down a little bit. So I want to try and compete at that high level of the Norsecas. I'll probably play a handful of those AVP qualifiers here and there if they, timing works out in the right way. But again, to me, it's the love of the game. It's not necessarily the love of the chase. I'm going towards the route of family, and I still want to play as much as I can. And that's the whole reason we're out here, is to play and just travel and hang and vibe. But it will probably take a little bit of a backseat once we move back. I'll probably just go back and play some of the local Newports, go back to the old stomping grounds. And you know what? You can actually make a decent little penny if you play every tournament and do decently well. It's probably easier to make money on the East Coast than it is on the West Coast out here.
Okay.
The payouts are relatively the same, but the competition is just way higher. So which to me, I would prefer. Right now, I much prefer to take the higher competition and the lower payouts than the lower competition and the higher payouts. Not that East Coast is low competition. That's not what I said, but California is a hub of the world, Right. So yeah, I'm going to be playing in these Norsecas and playing for the U.S. Virgin Islands for as long as I can play volleyball. And I'm always going to try and keep my training and my consistency to be able to compete at that level. And for the AVPs, if they come around and I have the opportunity, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at. I want to qualify. I want to get out there and play. But at the end of the day, I qualify. You didn't make anything. You're still making zero to qualify in a tournament. So, I'm not going to pay to go to Atlanta or Chicago or, unless I'm in the area for a certain reason. I wanted to go to New Orleans this year. That would be super fun. I'm taking it more as just the enjoyment. So it's the sport that I play and also the place that I'm traveling to, combining them. And that's an extremely amazing experience. So the Caribbean, it's hard to have a bad time.
Can't beat it. Yeah, can't beat it.
So I'm very excited about playing with this team and seeing where it goes. And who knows, maybe they get a partner out there that I can consistently play with. And funny enough, I don't see how realistic it is. We've only played one tournament, so it's still in its infancy of this whole ordeal. But if we compete in enough Norsecas, I mean, we're earning points towards Olympic status. We would have the opportunity to play in a future Olympics if we really did try and hit every Norseca possible.
That's wild, man.
I don't know how realistic it would be. Just, I think there was like 7 Norsecas. 4 of them were in the Dominican Republic this year. I joined a little bit late, so I'm only going to be able to get 2 in. I think there's 1 more in October. Again, I think it's in the Dominican Republic. So I'm more in the thought process of, I went to the Dominican this year. Let's go somewhere else for the latter part of the year. But if I was, if I found somebody that I was really going to grind it out with and try and make a push, I would try and hit as many tournaments as possible. And the points stack up pretty quick.
See what happens. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if we had won that game, the worst we could have done would have been a third. So that would have been, I think the tournament was double points as well. I mean, the opportunity is there. But I got to get more knowledgeable about this whole thing, because again, it's just so fresh and new to me. So it's definitely an exciting direction that we're going.
Well, when you come back east and look to settle down, I'm absolutely going to con you to come coach with me again. So
on the beach?
Well, no. You remember,
if I can come in and coach in
Giants,
my flip-flops, I'll be happy.
Giant Swede. We don't like the sun. That's why all the Vikings attacked at night. We didn't do it during the day.
Is that what it is? Makes sense.
So yeah, you can always come to the gym in your flip flops.
I'm in. If I can do that, I'm happy. That's all that matters.
Garrett Bucklin, thank you so much, man. Always great talking with you. Good to see you, and glad things are going well. Looking forward to seeing what you do next, and best of luck in all the tournaments.
Thank you.
And everyone watching, check this one out. It's a good one, and continue to tune in for the interviews. And I'll see you next video. Stay well,
Thank you.
everybody.
Take care.